Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here on my Minecraft single player Let's Play world, where in the previous episode we left off in this garden farm, and I'm happy to say this farm is actually super effective. I've been AFKing here for a little while now. I've gathered loads upon loads of materials. If you just look in some of these chests here, you can see that we've almost got a full double chest of prismarine shards. And of course you've got the duplicate on this side as well, so we've got another full double chest on the side as well. And I haven't even used my looting 3 sword yet and AFK'd here properly because I'm too scared to die, of course. But I'm still getting loads and loads of materials, and half the guardians aren't even coming through because they die in that lava over there, which I actually really should try and fix. But I guess it's just the guardian pathfinding since they want to swim up through the lava. However, in today's episode, we are going to be taking a break from farms overall and move back onto a building project. In fact, I'm super excited for this building project because it's going to be a new building style entirely, and I'm going to be starting a new settlement. But before we do all that, of course, we need to show you guys the location that I'm going to be building in. So let's make our way out of this guardian farm over here. But of course, quickly before we do that, I just cleaned up my mess because I had around 20 shulker boxes laying around here just randomly. So I cleaned those up and put a bunch of random stuff in this chest as well. So now that we're all clear, let's head over into the nether and back into the overworld where I plan to build my new village. So here we are in the nether, and I'm just approaching my custom mountains nether portal because where I plan to build the settlement is very close to there. So if we just head on through this door over here, you can see we've got some mountains over here, and it seems we've also got some pillagers that I quickly need to take care of. Alright, let's quickly kill a bunch of these guys here so that they don't really annoy me that much while I'm talking to you guys. Okay, all done now. So let's just go ahead, fly on up over here. And I believe there's no more pillagers around here. This is our custom mountain range that we've been building for a little while now. And I plan to make my settlement very close to here because I really want to use perspective to make this place look quite cool. And what I mean by that is that I want my village out here somewhere a certain distance away from the mountain range because I want to see the mountains out of the corner of my eye coming out of the horizon every single time you walk around this village. And I think that'd be quite a cool feature to play around with. I also plan to have a huge custom forest in the middle here so that you can see the mountains emerge out from behind the forest as you're walking around the village. And I think that'd be a pretty cool aesthetic. And I think honestly the best place to do that is in this plains biome over here. Just around here I think would be a really nice place, but at the moment it looks kind of ugly. So I think we should try and go ahead and start terraforming this place to look a little nicer. And I know it's already super early on in today's episode, but I think it'd be slightly more entertaining if we jump straight into a time lapse so that we can terraform this area and make the terrain slightly smoother. Plus, who knows, even if we start creating the village in today's episode itself, then we might jump into another time lapse later as well. But anyway, without further ado, I think we should jump straight into a time lapse. So I'll see you all after this one. And there we go, just like that, that time lapse is already completed. I didn't really want that time lapse to be a huge one, but I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway, because we have a lot more to do still in today's episode. But let's quickly go over what we did in today's time lapse. So just as you turn around over here, you can already see that we made this landscape over here. And you can already see that it looks a lot nicer than it was before and a lot smoother as well. The terrain isn't as rough, and I've also covered up all the cave entrances and all the little ponds spread out across the landscape. And I'm really happy with how it looks, and I think it's going to be a perfect place to start building our new settlement. Of course, though, I'm recording this basically straight after I finish the time lapse, so we still need to wait a little bit for some of these dirt patches to fill up with some grass, and then we can start building here properly and look at this landscape. But if we just fly up over here, you can see how different this landscape looks now. And at the beginning, I also extended this river over here so that it flows through this valley. And I think that also is an added bonus to this location. So overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out though. But now we need to move on to what we're actually going to be building in today's episode, which is the first build in this village over here. But of course, before we do all of that, we need to do a whole bunch of planning, and we also need to build the layout which the village is going to rest on, like building a bunch of paths and things like that. Of course, we're not going to finish all of it in today's episode because it's going to be one huge project, but I want to get started on the village. So without further ado, let's get straight into that. But just before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my mess over here and remove these shulker boxes so that we have a nice plain canvas to work with. Alright, so I've just teared down the beacon and put away all the shulker boxes in the area. So now all that we're left with is the land that we terraformed, which are these beautiful rolling hills and this river down below here as well. Now you might have noticed as I've been talking that I've got a new grass texture and I really do like it a lot. So I think I'm going to try and use it a lot more. And if you guys are wondering how to get this texture yourself, just go to your settings, go to your options, go to your video settings, go to quality, and then go to your better grass and turn that into fancy. And that's what I've done basically here. And I think it looks 100 times better. And I think I'm going to try and use this a lot more often as we're building. Anyway, let's get straight out into planning this village. Alright, so the first thing I want to start with is the actual pathway itself that is going to be running through the village. Now, I don't want to complete the entire pathway in today's episode because I do not really want to get into the whole layout of the village because that deserves to be its own entire episode. So to begin with, I'm just going to go ahead and place down my ender chest and grab my terracotta box because that's what I'm going to use to lay out my pathway. And like I said, I'm not going to lay out the entire pathway. I'm just going to lay out a small section of the pathway which is going to run in front of the building that we're going to build in today's episode. So when it comes to the actual design of the pathway I intend to do, I'm going to use these terracotta blocks like I said, and I'm going to make it curve around this location over here and perhaps even out towards the mountains over there later on. However, I just want to build this little section like I said, so I think we're just going to make a small curve around here just so that it curves around this bend like so, and then back out in that direction. So what I really want to do is make this path really wide and make it look really nice at the same time. So I'm just gonna lay it out like so, and about every 1 or 2 blocks, I'm just gonna place a terracotta block just like so, so that you get a nice feel for how this pathway is actually going to be shaped. And as you can see, I'm already adding in this curved shape just so that it looks a little nicer. And then I'm going to continue this all the way around here, and then I'll notify you guys once I'm done with the pathway. And just like that, I've completed my pathway and I think it looks quite nice actually. Now this is just the layout. Of course, I'm going to use different blocks for the actual path design itself. But basically, if you just come to the beginning here, you can see that I kind of looped around this corner over here and then has a nice bend around this section here and it curves around that side as well. And I plan to make my first building in this open section over here. Now, when it comes to the block palette of the path itself, I'm thinking of using a mix of cobblestone, stone, and andesite, and hopefully that turns out really well. Now let's just go ahead, place our terracotta back in its box, and talk about the building that's going to fit into this plot over here. So for the building that's going to fit into this area over here, I've already got an image in my head of what I really want to try and create, and I think once I execute that, it's going to turn out quite cool. Now I intend to use a wide variety of blocks for the build palette so that it also looks unique. Unfortunately though, I do not have all the blocks that I'm going to use on me at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab all of them and then come back here and show you the exact block palette that I'm going to use. Alright, I'm flying in now to the location and I think I've got all the blocks that I'm going to use for this build on hand now. So basically, if I just grab these shulker boxes here, we're going to be using a wide variety of blocks. So we're going to place these down, of course, and we're going to be using some cobblestone, some stone, and some stone bricks for the base, of course. I need to grab more stone bricks and some mossy stone bricks and cracked stone bricks for details. And then I'm also going to be using a side some dark oak logs, and I'm going to strip those just to make it look a little cooler. And then if we just go ahead and incorporate some of these blocks here so that you can actually get a visual representation, you can see how it's going to look. And there we go, I've added a few more blocks here now so that you guys can get a better view of how each wall is going to look like. And I think this is going to suit the build really nicely. Now let's move on and talk about the roof that this build is going to have. So I'm thinking of using some different colors to kind of make this build pop out. So I'm thinking cyan is going to do the job perfectly. So if you just go ahead and place some cyan wool on top of this build just like so, or this block palette representation, you can see how this kind of contrasts against this general color, but still makes it look quite nice and pop out. Of course, though, we're also going to be using a mix of cyan concrete so that this roof doesn't look so plain and that we get a bit of variety. Unfortunately, though, I do not have any cyan concrete on hand with me at the moment, so this is just going to have to do. Anyway, without further ado, I think we should get straight into building. This is one nice looking build palette. Of course, we're going to be using other blocks on top of this, but those are going to be accent colors and other random details. But I think we should get straight into building this build, and which of course means a time lapse. So I'm just going to quickly go ahead and take down this model, and I'll see you all after this time lapse. for the second time in today's episode, we finished up another time lapse, which hopefully you all enjoyed because I'm really happy with the end result, which is this build over here. And I have to say, I really, really adore it, and I think it came out spectacularly. Like, I have to say, I think I put a lot of detail and effort into this one, so it came out looking beautiful. Anyway, before I continue to ramble on about how I love this build so much, let's do a rundown of what I've created. So at the beginning of the time lapse, I of course started with the main build itself, which is a bakery for those of you that don't know it, and I think it looks really, really nice. So we've got two main parts to the build. We've got this front section over here, which kind of goes sideways, and we've got a nice window, which is a display kind of window over here, where all the bread and stuff for the bakery will of course go. And then we've got some nice windows on top of that with of course the cyan roof above that as well. And then on this side over here, we've got a little jutting out section with a nice little window as well. And I think that window actually looks quite nice because I tried to use different blocks so that it kind of stands out. So you can see here I'm using cartography tables to get that upwards dark oak effect, and then a loom of course at the bottom just to kind of break it up a little bit. And then if you, of course, make our way around the back, where we got all sorts of details over here, we got a nice little tree, and we've got a little flower pot over here. But if we just continue around the side, we've got more windows, of course, with some little details here and there, like some barrels. And then if you come all the way just to the back side over here, we've got a nice huge chimney that's a little broken, but that adds to the texturing. And then we've got some other small details such as this vine creeping down the side of the building and this huge balcony over here that I have to say looks quite cute as well. And I have to say the balcony also fits really snugly into this small space whilst looking quite big. And then finally, if you come around to this final corner over here, we've got another side entrance to the build, which I think looks quite nice. And then some more windows with details, of course. I've also added this little wheelbarrow over here because I think that looks quite cool and just adds a little extra depth into the build. And also, it kind of gives a bit of character to the build as well because since this is a bakery, someone's probably going to wheel over some wheat, which is going to be cooked to bread inside the build. And overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. We've of course got much, much more to this build as well. We've got like these flower pots hanging from the roof, of course, and we've got some more vines here and there. But I think it looks really, really nice. Of course, though, the inside isn't complete yet because I do not have the time right now to complete the interior. But of course, that will have its own episode entirely because I can show you guys how I do my interior building process. Anyway, let's just make our way outside of this build now and tell you guys what else I built. So of course we built this nice path over here which I absolutely adore. I think it's a nice mix of all the three stones. We got some cobble, we got some stone, and we got some andesite. And then here and there I've also mixed in some stone bricks to kind of give it some lining as well as some polished andesite here and there. And I think that makes it look really, really nice. Like from afar, that fits in perfectly with this build style. And then if you continue all the way on this side as well, we've got a huge custom tree which I think looks absolutely spectacular. And I didn't really even put that much thought into this custom tree, kind of just went with it, improvised, and it turned out really, really nice. So if you guys want to know how I do my custom trees, I'll also show you guys that in the next episode as well. And then of course at the end of the time lapse I also did a few other details like adding in some green concrete powder around here just to have a little bit of texturing in the grass as well, and I think that looks quite nice. Of course, I've also mixed in some coarse dirt and some puddle to also give it a little bit of roughness to the terrain. And I think overall this has turned out perfectly. Anyway, with all that being said, I absolutely adore this building, even though I probably said that 1,000 times, but I really do mean it, and hopefully you guys love it too. However, this is going to have to be the end of today's episode. But don't worry, we're going to be back here in the next episode, of course, where we're going to be working on the settlement once again. Of course, we're also going to be doing the interior, and you guys will see my in-depth, step-by-step process on how I do my interiors, which will help you guys a lot. And so now all we have left to do, of course, is to clean up my shulker box mess over here because I still have a bunch of shulker boxes just lying around filled with random materials that I need to put away. But other than that, I think I'm all done in today's episode, like I already mentioned. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And don't forget to check out my Discord and my Twitch, where I stream weekly from time to time. And on my Discord, I also do announcements like when I'm going to post and community polls so you guys can participate in those. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.